Live on WFLA Now. This is Run for Fun with running enthusiast Lee Spann.
All right, let's go. Welcome back to the Stream Center for this week's episode of Run for Fun. We created this show to help us all remember that we do this sport for enjoyment and for recreation. Of course, we want to improve, but the show really focuses on ways to enhance our enjoyment by not pushing ourselves too hard all the time or making sure we eat and sleep enough. That's a big one. And not, hopefully, getting injured. So I'm your host, Lee Spann. I'm a meteorologist at WFLA in Tampa, but I'm also an avid runner. And I was thinking about this. We've done this show now for about a year and a half. And I really, really hope that we're starting to sort of spread the message to runners, maybe even some non-runners, that this is, in fact, a fun sport. So joining me, as she does every week, of course, Coach Maria. Welcome back.
Good morning, Lee.
Can you believe a year and a half already? This has gone by so fast.
I know. I can't believe we've done this many episodes. It's crazy.
And we keep thinking of more ways to make running fun.
I know, all the ways, all the things.
So many ways. And one of the ways that, as we're kind of now heading into the hotter months, we're going to go out of what we consider sort of racing season. And so that's where we want to really interact with people via our Strava. And do you see how many people have now joined our Strava group?
Oh my gosh, we're almost at 300. That's so exciting.
289. So if you don't know what Strava is, it's time. It's time to know what it is. You download the free app on your phone. You can carry it with you on your walks and your runs, and it kind of keeps that up. It lets you know how far you've gone, that kind of thing, how fast you went. But then if you join our groups, you go to clubs and groups, you can find WFLA Run for Fun, as 289 people have. And we use it more as a social media. So Maria, talk them through a little bit more about why they should really be focusing in on Strava as we head into the summer.
Well, I think it's a good opportunity to not waste your summer months. So many people are like, oh my gosh, I can't run in the summer. But I'm going to argue, in Florida especially, we don't have it that hard. We have no hills. It's very flat. If you use your summer months as a way of base building, then you're going to come out of the summer very, very, very strong, and your race season will be really good. So we would like to use Strava as a way of kind of tracking your miles and holding yourself accountable and holding each other accountable for some hot, sweaty, nasty miles.
So hot and so sweaty. And we like to reward ourselves with slushies or Slurpees from 7-Eleven after our run. So give yourself a little grace and a little joy in some of these hot runs, and treat yourself as you will.
And it's just about expectations, right? Like, expect that it's going to suck. You should expect it's going to suck in the summer, and you just slow down and you say, you know what? I am going to get stronger. And, our life is pretty comfortable for the most part. So we should probably get out there and struggle a little bit in the summer.
Just a little bit. All right. So today, our topic is about taking a big, deep breath. Everybody in, and focus in on how that breath is giving us life. Joining the show,
feels so good.
Yes, joining the show now is Tammy Thompson. She's a yoga instructor in Tampa and an avid runner as well. Thank you so much for joining us, Tammy.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I've taken plenty of Tammy's classes. I keep telling her I plan on coming back eventually.
Yes.
They're great classes. You're a great teacher. Talk to us about how you made your way into yoga and running.
Well, I started running as a freshman in college. So I was around 17, 18 when I started running. And it started out more for mental health, I think. I was going through a hard time in school and life. And I was really fortunate at the time. My best friend and my boyfriend and my whole friend group, they were on the cross country team at USF. So they helped push me along. And then shortly a few years after that, I started practicing yoga as a counterbalance to running. So really just for the stretching.
Yes, I will say that is very helpful, because you do get real tight from running constantly. So it was interesting. I didn't realize that your running started your yoga practice.
Yes. And then the yoga, I was somewhat inconsistent with it for a while, for a few years. And when my daughter, who is now 22, was born, I started really practicing consistently. It made me a better mother. It made me calmer and just more at ease in everything in life.
Oh, tell me more about that because
Yeah.
maybe I should have been doing yoga. But what was it about yoga that was it the calming? Was it the breath? What was it that helped
Um,
you?
it was really all of it, just like the single-minded focus that you have for that period of time where you're practicing, and then learning breath and movement together was very helpful. And that's kind of very similar with running and in terms of it being a moving meditation, breath and movement. So just learning to be in the moment and um, remaining present when things get challenging as a mom, especially a young mom. It was hard and but wonderful, and it just made me appreciate it all the more.
I mean, as a mother of children the same age as your children, um, how do you turn off the grocery list in your head? Like when you're sitting in yoga, I would just have a laundry list of things I had to do, and it, it yoga would actually bring me anxiety. How do you get past that?
Mhm. I understand how yoga can bring anxiety initially because everything gets really quiet, right? And that's when the mind starts getting loud. And breath, that is a big part of it, is learning to just stay with your breath, with the inhale and the exhale, and um, finding that single pointed awareness, which can be brought through the breath. And then in a yoga practice, you're typically, not always, but typically you're getting into movement and what can be considered challenging movement. So that alone will keep you present.
That's
Trying,
super helpful.
Because some of those,
yeah,
holding some of those poses, if you think about too much else, you're going to
yeah,
fall out of them. So it is a centralized focus, which was, it is for that hour and a half or however long your class is. There needs to be a lot of focus.
absolutely. Yeah. And yoga, we call it a drishti point, and it's a focal point inner and outer. So in your mind's eye and whatever you happen to be looking at physically in the room, you try to just stay with that point of focus through the whole practice. And eventually, once you've practiced that long enough, it translates to your life off the mat, to everything else that you do in life.
Yeah, and I wonder, like, how long does it take to feel comfortable in a yoga studio? Because I would have probably imagined I haven't done it for long enough to be able to. I've done a lot of yoga classes in my life, but I've never been consistent enough. Is there like a set point of consistency that, because there is with running, it's like 6 to 8 weeks of being consistent with running. You've kind of, you know, you're going to start reaping the benefits and enjoy it. Is there something like that with yoga, or is it just always a
You know,
grind?
I think it's different for everybody. A lot of times in a yoga practice, we'll challenge students to do 30 days. And you'll see that in the different studios, they'll do a 30-day challenge. And I think if you stick with something for 30 days, really probably anything, it's going to start to create a habit within you. And
Mhm.
then when that habit's created, it just becomes part of your routine, part of your daily life.
Now,
So
do
I
you
would
practice yoga every day?
I practice some form of yoga every day, yes. And sometimes that isn't physical. So I consider sitting in meditation a yoga practice. And
Okay.
actually, meditation is yoga. So they go hand in hand. I think of breath work, meditation, and the physical practice all as part of a yoga practice. So some days after I'm done running, I'll sit and meditate for 10, 15 minutes. And usually after I'm done running, I'll also do at least 10 or 15 minutes of postures to counterbalance the running.
And what are some of the ones that you do after running to continue that
Uh,
stretching?
so, pigeon pose,
Yeah.
a lot
Good
of
for the
openers,
Yep.
you know, poses, and reclined figure four, butterfly posture. And then, posture itself is a big part, I think, of
As I'm sitting up
We
straight.
both, but we both saw his shoulders back.
So I would say that a lot of, I try to do a lot of back bending as well. For me, when I run, my tendency, or at least it used to be, is to kind of hunch forward.
A lot
And
of
that,
people do that.
yeah, and it's really important to draw your shoulders back and down, find good posture. And yoga helped me with that a lot. But so I do a lot of back bending over, the big yoga ball. So,
Mhm.
so it's kind of assisted back bending. I do that every day after I'm done running.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I can see that. That would be very helpful, actually.
And the
Mhm.
and posture when you are able to run, bringing it back to like this breath work, if you're able to run with your shoulders back, you can get that air to go farther down into your belly, which yoga really makes you learn this belly breath, which I
Yes.
can't remember who I was just talking to, and um, it was Anne Marie last week when
Yeah,
we were
last
talking.
week I
Yes,
was gonna
that
say.
I was like, what was it? It was last episode. Is that most people assume when you take a big breath, your chest goes out, but you want to work on making your belly go out. So how when you're teaching as someone who's brand new to yoga, how do you
Mhm.
exercise? What exercises do you work on?
Well, and I do this almost in every class. I'll have you put your hands on your belly, and you can do that now. Put your hands on your belly and soften your belly, and then inhale through your nose. Take a deep inhale, and as you inhale, feel your belly press into your hands. And then move your hands up to your rib cage. And as you inhale, feel your ribs move out. You want to feel your ribs expand out, not forward.
I,
So that's dramatic breathing, where you're breathing into all four parts of your core.
and what's the benefit of getting the air to go all the way down to your diaphragm?
Your body is taking in more oxygen, so it's more efficient, particularly in running, but really in every aspect of life. I always say breath work is a superpower because you can use it for many different things. And one thing that's really useful, and I would say in running, but just in anything stressful in life, is to learn how to extend your exhale. So you would take a nice deep breath in, fill all the way up, and then take a longer exhalation. That wouldn't be something necessarily to do while you're running, but prior to running, or anytime you find yourself in a situation like traffic or something stressful that may happen throughout the day. If you can pull in that breath into your belly, into your rib cage, hold it, and then find a longer, like almost double the time for the exhalation, that's a natural way to soften your nervous system, to tap into your parasympathetic nervous system.
Which is so important to keep balance, especially with running. And actually, as we age, our cortisol levels are higher because we're putting more stress on our body. So that makes breath work even more important because that can kind of mitigate the stress of running with our cortisol levels higher because runners do tend to have higher cortisol levels.
Mm.
And these are exercises, obviously, that that you can be doing throughout when you're not running. That I think then when you're running, it becomes a little bit more second nature to take that deeper breath. Then it's too easy to gasp. I mean, you hear people running, with the, and then you can tell they're just breathing from like right here at the top of their lungs. So if you work on creating those muscles down in your diaphragm to make when you're not running, it makes it a little bit easier to get that whole oxygen. Boy, we need the oxygen, especially when we're running fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if that's something that you are conscious of and you start to make that part of your daily practice, over time it just becomes part of your life. You don't even notice that you're doing it.
Then you get
And
better and better at it.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you get better and better at it. And you can feel it. You have more lung capacity when you are running, and it makes it actually easier on for me anyway. It feels easier as I'm running. Um,
When I focus on my breath, if I'm running easily, a lot of times I will close my mouth to make sure I'm running easy enough and try to breathe like as low as I can, only on an easy run. It's not going to work on a hard run, but my heart rate is 10 beats per minute lower when I do that, when I focus on that. It's
Wow.
crazy. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. And, also, I don't know about road racing. I think it's probably pretty normal to get stressed, maybe lose
Hmm.
for a race. That would, for me, that would be super important to tap into that long exhale the night before. You could go into a whole breath meditation. And there are other meditations that you can do, visualizations and things like that that will help ease your nervous system a night before a race, which is important. It'll help you run better the next day,
Yeah,
maybe.
absolutely.
You lower that cortisol
Well, it
level.
does
Yeah.
help you as long as you're consistent about it. I think a lot of people don't realize that the practice of yoga, of course, we like to overthink everything, which is what I'm going to talk about in my coach's drill. But the yoga part of it is the practice of doing it over and over again so that it becomes a natural reaction when you get stressed. Your body's like, oh, I just need to breathe, and it will do it on its own. But
Yep.
that takes consistency over time, right? Like anything else.
Yeah. Yep. I would say for me and my yoga practice, and I've been practicing a long, long time, it is the breath. It is learning to make that just part of my routine. That has helped me tremendously over the years in running, but really in everything, because it will relax the nervous system, which allows you, when you're in that parasympathetic state, it allows you to be more proactive and less reactive in your
Mhm.
choices, more present so that you can think clearly and respond in a clear, concise manner.
Less worry. So you're
Less,
not worried about outcomes as much,
yeah,
which really makes us struggle with performance when we're worried, when we're outcome minded, we struggle to race well. So I think if people can manage to keep yoga, the balance of yoga and running, how have you, like, how many days a week do you run and how many days do you do yoga, and how have you found a way to stay motivated to do all those things?
well, I will say, first of all, that I turned 50 in September and my body has changed. I can
Uh-huh.
feel it. And so, um, in that amount of time, I guess it's been 7 or 8 months, um, I've had to shift what I've been doing because I've
Hmm.
been doing things a little differently. So you might be able to help me with that in the future. But in terms of staying motivated, I don't have to do anything to stay motivated because running has been a crucial part of my well-being for my whole adult life. And so it's a part of me. It's just who I am. I go for a run. I used to run every day and I would take one day off a week. Since turning 50, I've learned to not do that. So now I am running every other day. So I run 4 days a week, 3 or 4 days a week. And then I have countered that with more strength training. I'm trying to do more strength training. I've actually just done my Pilates teacher training. I'm in the middle of it, but I've finished the mat portion because I found Pilates to be really helpful. It is very strengthening in your
Hmm.
hamstring. Um, so I'm countering it with that. I do something every single day, 7 days
Hmm.
a week. Yeah.
Kind of like brushing your teeth. After you've been doing it long enough, you're like, well, I just can't do my day without some kind of exercise.
Right.
That's when you know you've made it in life, in my opinion.
See, I remember in one of the classes, I don't know, it's been a while since I had taken one of your classes, but you said something to the effect of, I'm one of the stiffer yoga teachers
Oh,
because I'm also a runner. And so it really, I mean, if you're only doing yoga versus, running and yoga, it's quite a difference.
yeah. There is a big difference. I mean, I feel like the only reason I can touch my toes easily is because of yoga.
Mhm.
If I just ran, I would be like Tin Man, I think. I can't
That's
even
me.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have felt a difference, which is why since we've been doing this podcast, I've said I want to get back into yoga because, you know, I think I was still reaping a lot of the benefits from doing it, a pretty solid practice of yoga. And I was doing shorter runs. And as I transitioned more into doing marathons, literally just the time kept me out of the yoga classes. And I was still reaping, I think, a lot of the benefits from the, 10 years of yoga before. And now I'm starting to feel okay, everything is tight. And I, even as a young child, I was always doing, gymnastics. I've always been relatively flexible. So not only am I now in my 40s and having all those issues, but now I'm also feeling so much tighter. So for a year and a half now, I've been saying I'm getting back into yoga, but you're in a studio near my house now. So I have literally no excuses.
Well, I'll look for your name then on the
Please.
schedule.
It's so hard because every time I go into yoga, I'm like, oh, I suck at this. Like
Now, I will say that
I'm so bad at it.
When I was a lot more consistent and you would see someone new-ish coming in, like your heart just went out. Like you wanted them to not feel embarrassed because you're just like, we were all there. We were all there. We all did this. And I think that one of the very first classes I ever went to, there was an older gentleman who he ended up sort of substituting some. So he was very good. Clearly he'd been doing yoga for many, many years. And the first thing he just said to me is just don't take yourself too seriously. And it made me so much more comfortable because I was there by myself. I didn't know anything. And there was this, very flexible man next to me. And he really helped me feel better. And then I felt that more as the years went on, that when someone knew and was clearly having, stress about it, that I wanted to just be like, we don't care. Don't take yourself so seriously.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that especially with running, if you're very tight, you should absolutely come to a yoga class. And I think it's funny. It's not a competitive sport. Yoga is not a competitive sport, but people get so competitive, and I've never quite gotten that myself. I think that just showing up, even if you show up and sit there and breathe the whole time, you're practicing yoga. It's really
right. Child's pose. I can do that.
Yeah.
You can just sit. You can sit on a blanket.
You do not have to stand on your hands to practice yoga.
I really was just going to admit to you that I really want to be able to do a handstand. Like that is like one of my bucket list items.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Well, you should come
I can't believe I just said that out loud.
So one of the things that Maria, that when I was working on inversions, if you will, going upside down, is that it took you a long time as a child to learn to even walk on your feet, right?
Yeah.
So,
right.
so your body has to learn to be upright, even if it's in the inverted position. So you didn't just immediately come out of the womb and start walking around either. You had to learn that balance.
It's very scary to me, but I am intrigued by things that scare me. So I need to go into that and just remember that you got to be brave enough to suck at something first, right?
Absolutely. And you the wall for your handstands. You could start with a headstand.
I know. People always tell me that. I can do a headstand, no problem.
Alone,
but
or on the wall?
No, like alone. I can do a headstand.
Wow, that's really great.
But something about the hands, I'm like just fearful of falling more and having it hurt more. I don't know why. You can't catch yourself as quickly, I guess.
Yeah, you'll definitely want to use the wall.
Yeah.
But again, as Tammy was saying, yoga is not only doing a handstand, even though that's what you particularly want to do. A lot of it is just the focus. It's the focus of your mind, the focus of your breath. And I think that's what really sets it apart from a lot of other exercises, which at least that's the way I feel.
Absolutely.
I do have a question, Tammy. Like when I look at a yoga schedule and I get it, I'll pull a yoga schedule and be like, which class should I go to? I get extremely overwhelmed because I'm like, which class should I go to? Like, which is the best type of yoga for supplementing your running or making your running stronger? Do you have a specific one?
It's interesting because for me, there are two types of practices that benefit running the most. One of them is yin. So if you schedule, and if you're a type A, yin will drive you crazy at first.
Yeah.
So explain what yin is. Yes.
A yin practice gets more into the connective tissue in the joints. And so you have to soften the muscles to get into the deeper places. Most of those postures, pigeon pose is a prime yin posture. Okay. They're mostly on the ground and you hold them for an extended period of time. So if you take a yin class, you might do 8 postures the whole time. But that will really lengthen everything out for you. So in terms of stretching, I would say yin is a great counterbalance. But you also need, and this is what I've really learned over the past year, you really need strength for running too. And I would say a slow flow or a slow power practice
Mm-hmm.
give you strength. So vinyasa yoga is good for that. In my classes, I try to move. I teach a class at Cocoon called Honey Flow.
That's the one I've
And
seen. It's in the middle. It's in a time when I can come to.
oh, good. I think personally, I think that is a great class for runners because people think it's going to be really easy because it has honey in the title, but it just means that we move slower and you hold the postures maybe a beat longer. And it's strengthening, it adds strength. So for me, I've had some hamstring issues since turning 50, and I have not enjoyed that. But I'll say that the longer held warrior postures, more power type postures, that's strengthening. So that's really beneficial for running. So I would
It
say,
can help your mind game so much. Like I cannot tell you how many of my people struggle with mental, mental game. We work our strength, we work our running, but we really don't pay attention to our mental game. And when you're running a race, especially the distance races, your mental game is so important.
yes, yeah. And again, it comes back to learning to, when your mind starts to play tricks on you, to draw yourself back into the moment, back into your breath, back into, with running, I love to just kind of link my breath to my movement. So if I get trapped, in the mind games of it, I'll start counting my steps, counting my beats, and trying to link my breath to my beats. 3 steps, 1 inhale, 3 steps, 1 exhale, kind of thing.
Because we talk a lot about being, run the mile you're in, but sometimes in those races and your mind is going a little off, it might be the run the step that you're in, just like that.
Yeah,
Like
for
just
sure.
don't focus on anything other than what you're doing right now, even less than the mile that you're in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And earlier you talked about breathing out more. What is that doing when you let out more air than you technically brought in? I mean, I guess that's not
Well,
exactly.
you're not letting out more than you brought in, you're lengthening the count.
Okay.
So if you inhale through your nose, say a 4 count inhalation through your nose, and then feel a pause, exhale through your nose, 7 or 8 counts. So you're slowing down the exhale, and that is softening the nervous system. That's how you tap into the parasympathetic nervous system. So when you feel overwhelmed or stressed, and I'm not saying to do that during your run, but that would be
Before your run.
Yeah.
before you run,
Yes.
or for a race or something
Yes,
like that.
before a race. It's really important before a race to make sure that your nervous system is not already elevated. That's kind of what we talked about a few podcasts before about how you should say, I'm excited as opposed to I'm nervous, because that shuts that cortisol down. The breath work, and we talked about it when Michael Woolsey was on with meditation. It's so important to stay in that moment as a runner. It is, and shut your brain off. It's so important to be a successful road racer to be able to do that. And our elite athletes know that, but our recreational athletes sometimes struggle with not wanting to do meditation and breath work.
Yeah, because it's a whole body experience. I mean, whether you're doing yoga or running, it involves your breath, it involves your mind, and it involves your body. And a lot of us, it's so easy to just work the body. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to run fast and I'm going to do this thing. But are you you're not going to you're going to have a plateau or you're going to have a ceiling if you're not working the breath and the mind at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, another big thing in yoga is having a mantra. So
Mhm.
for intention, and then once you have your intention, forming a mantra. So like a positive statement said in present tense, something like, I am healthy, balanced, and strong, something like that. And that is something that I do every morning before I get out of bed. And that has helped over the years with everything because it'll help throughout the day and in running too. It'll help bring you back to that present. So if you get overwhelmed, draw yourself back to your mantra and say it in present tense. So what did you just said something? I'm excited about the race.
I'm not nervous. Yeah. So say I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited. So you want to do that with your mantra too. It should be positive and in present tense. And then you can draw yourself back to that throughout the day, throughout your run, throughout whatever is going on in your life. And it just helps recenter
It
again and again.
also, I read some research the other day that said it's better to talk to yourself in the third person too. When you say, if you say you are healthy and strong, or instead of I am healthy and strong, your brain listens to it better, which is so funny, but
Our brains, our psyches are very complicated.
it's very complicated. But hey, like if we're out there talking to ourselves in the third person, do what you got to do.
You are so fast. You are so fast. All right, we're gonna do a quick check with Maria's 1 minute coaching drill. So what, Tammy, Coach, while she has a lot of thoughts on things, we like to give her a minute where she gets to speak all on her own. And today's her topic is be careful not to overthink things.
Yeah. So I know we tell you all the things on the show. And while it is important, I want to remind everybody, because the typical runner overthinks everything. I have seen it for years. I've been coaching for 20 years and everybody overthinks everything. And I try really hard to give you just enough to think about, but not overthink. And reason being, because we overthink things and then we don't do them accurately. So while Tammy was talking today about breath work, I want you to concentrate on breath work, but it should be something you do outside of running, and then try not to think about it while you're running. It's kind of like the drills we do before track. They're meant for your body to naturally run better when you're running, not for you to think about it while you're running. Try to shut the brain off, because running is a simple sport and we don't want to overcomplicate it. It really makes things difficult down the road. You see what I did there, down the road?
Oh, I did. Your time is up. But yeah, that's what Tammy was saying, is a lot of this breath work is not done while you're running. It's to strengthen those muscles so that they just do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, which is actually what we do with a dynamic warm up, and the A skips and the B skips and the lunges. They're meant to train the body to do it on its own without you thinking about it. Like the goal is to be able to do these things naturally while you're running so that you can run relaxed, not to sit. I've had so many runners, like when I say do work on breath work, they like become obsessed with doing it every run. I have to do every run, the breath work. And then they can't get out of it when they need to get out of it. Because there are some times where you do have to just run as hard as you can and open as many airways as you can to get as much oxygen as you can in. So try to do some of these practices outside of running and do them regularly enough so that they will apply to your running naturally without thinking about it.
So Tammy, you told us about the one where your belly should go out and your belly should go out, ribs should go to the side. Are there any other things that any other exercises we can be doing?
In terms of breath?
Yeah.
Okay. So another one that I really like is lie on your back, bring your hands on your low belly, inhale through your nose and feel your belly rise, and then pause. So you feel a pause. Then move your hands up to your rib cage. Inhale, feel your ribs expand out, pause. And then move your palms up to your collarbone, chest area. Inhale again, feel a pause. So you're inhaling for quite a while, and then open your mouth and slowly exhale.
That sounds hard.
It's not that hard. It will increase your lung capacity.
Okay. Yeah, which we need more lung capacity.
Yes,
that's what we need.
Yes. Well, this has been fascinating. I'm glad I got to bring my two kind of coaches together for
yeah.
And I just want people to realize that that running is fun. We focus in on all these things, but in the end we do this because Tammy's been doing it since she was 18 years old. Maria's been doing it since she was in her 20s, and I've started around 30. Like, we do it because we like it.
And it adds to our life, right? If it doesn't add to our life, we wouldn't do it. So make sure you keep it adding to your life and not taking away.
It is life.
Yeah.
Running is,
Yeah.
yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you, Tammy.
Thank you,
Oh,
Tammy.
loved it, being here with you too. So I appreciate it.
You gave us some wonderful information. We'll see you
Thanks.
next time.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.